You're poor and jobless, you'll never get a girlfriend.
That's what my former classmate despised me for saying. I really shouldn't have come to this reunion. I was about to leave when I was looked down upon at the reunion that my mother pushed me to attend, even though I didn't want to.
I'm his girlfriend, so what?
I had no idea that she was the one linking arms with me after saying that. My name is Trevor. I'm a tomato farmer, living with Linda, my mother, in her house in the countryside. I've never been a smart person, and it took me a long time to be able to study, sports, whatever I did, to be able to do it as well as others. But I've always wanted to make life better for my mother. This thought has never wavered since I was a child. It may sound cheesy, but I thought that if I studied hard and joined a good company, I could earn a lot of salary and give my mother a good life, so in my own way, I studied harder than anyone else. The reason I care so much about her is because I grew up without a father, in a single mother household. My mother told me that she and my father divorced while she was pregnant with me and that she had severed all ties. So my mother did not receive any child support and raised me completely on her own earnings. It must have been difficult for the woman to earn the amount of money that would normally be earned by the father of the child. Both of her parents had passed away, and she took over the tomato farm they had run. But since farming alone wasn't enough, she also worked night shifts to make ends meet. Farming is a physically demanding job, and it is only natural for a son to want to make it easier for his mother, who goes out at night to earn money for me while doing it. I dedicated myself to my studies, but perhaps because I focused only on that, or just because I'm inherently clumsy, I wasn't good at sports or other activities. Especially I'm not good at communicating. Although I could easily read the textbook or write on the blackboard without difficulty when assigned by the teacher in class, I was not very good at making eye contact with others or in group discussions. In any case, I was not very good at talking to others. Then came the fall of my senior year in high school. I wanted to go to college, but since my family was poor, I had a hard time telling my mother. Still, I decided to just say it and boldly confide in her. Mom, I want to go to college.
Well, I would love to send you to college, but we don't have the money for it.
I knew it, but it was still hard for me to go on to college. So I had given up on higher education for a while, but my school counselor told me about the scholarship program. I decided to apply, thinking this would allow me to go on to higher education without causing my mother any hardship. I qualified for a scholarship, which covered my tuition. Thus, not having to worry about tuition fees, I was able to concentrate on my studies and was accepted to the university of my first choice. I finally became a college student. However, since I was still not very smart, I was worried about whether I would be able to keep up with the lectures at the university, but I studied harder than anyone else and managed to graduate. After graduation, I got a job at my first choice major company. I thought my future was secured. And when I save up, I can make my mother's life easier. My eagerness was short-lived. I was unable to overcome my communication difficulties even in college, so I applied for and was supposed to have been accepted for the office job, but to my surprise, I was assigned to sales. Of course, I could have quit, but I reluctantly agreed because I did not want to give up the opportunity to join a large company and the good salary. Once I accepted it, there was no point in lamenting over it any longer. I am a working professional now. So I changed my mind and decided to think positively about overcoming my communication difficulties through my sales job. Then came my first day on the job.
I'm Trevor. Nice to meet you all. Can't hear you, newbie, some employee said. You'll never get a contract if you talk like that. The other employees also laughed and chuckled.
I knew they didn't mean to offend, but I didn't like this kind of teasing attitude towards people. And rumor had it that the people here were really willing to do anything to get a contract, And I didn't like that kind of culture either. I witnessed such tactics but committed myself to ensure customers signed with us only after they fully understood and agreed, without forcing or lying to them. Thanks to that, my customers highly rated me. However, focusing too much on each individual deal, my sales figures were always the lowest.
Hey Trevor, you're in last place again, huh? Craig, I'm sorry. You need to learn more about how your seniors are doing, because you're not smart enough to do it that way.
How my seniors are doing. I would never do such an underhanded approach. I guess Craig could tell from my expression that I thought so, and he brought his face close to mine in a coercive attitude.
Hey, what's your problem? Stop complaining and get on with it. You didn't get half as many contracts as I did, so don't be so cocky. I'm sorry, really sorry.
Every time the sales performance chart was posted, Craig would either snipe at me for fun or get unreasonably pissed at me. If that's all, I could still stand it too. After all, my sales numbers were nowhere near Craig's. The number of contracts was far more important than customer satisfaction in order to be recognized in this field of sales where all that matters is the result. But Craig's harassment escalated day by day, until he started singling me out during morning meetings.
You know, this guy didn't get another contract. What do you guys think about that?
Craig seemed rather amused, as he went out of his way to loudly inform everyone of something that was obvious from the posted chart. It didn't stop at all. He even began subtly harassing me. His harassment was so vicious that it affected my work, such as excluding me alone from communication, deliberately neglecting materials I had submitted, and not approving them by insisting I didn't receive them. And finally, Craig delivered the killing blow.
You're not cut out for this job. Just quit.
His daily harassment and the relentless sniping when my sales performance was posted were almost pushing me over the edge. When it became hard to get up in the morning to work, and the sight of Craig made my heart beat so fast that I broke out in a cold sweat, I went to see a mental health professional. Then, I was diagnosed with depression. I tried to report this to Kyle, the sales director, and to Mr. Parker, the company president, but I was afraid of what they would say, so I couldn't even mention it to them. Since being diagnosed with depression, I have had a lot of trouble in my work and have caused a lot of problems for my customers. Due to the numerous complaints, I was eventually called into the president's office.
I kept you on because you had a good reputation with our customers, even though your sales performance was poor. Now that this has happened, I have decided that there is no need for you to stay.
You're fired. At that moment, I felt more relief than shock. I had been contemplating resigning or taking a medical leave due to my depression, but hadn't been able to speak up, so being fired allowed me to leave without any regrets. After losing my job in this way, I decided to go back to my family home in the countryside because I was depressed and in no condition to work even if I wanted to change jobs.
Mom, I'm home. Trevor, glad you are back safe and sound. It must have been hard for you. I'm sorry, I got fired from my job.
It was a moment of relief to see my mother and a moment of tears, because I was depressed and frustrated that I was fired. She embraced me gently.
Trevor, you tried your hardest. Now get some rest.
After a good recovery, I decided to stay there to help my mother with the farm work. She was very pleased. I lived with my mother until I graduated from high school, but I had never helped out on the farm because I was always studying. I had no physical strength and little knowledge about tomatoes, so I had a very hard time at first. But as I got used to it, I grew deeply interested in every aspect of tomato farming, finding joy just from looking at the tomatoes. One day, as I was working in the field as usual, I sensed a car stopping nearby. Curious, I looked up to see a luxury car, the type everyone recognizes, parked near our farm. Who could that be in such a rural place? I wondered. Then, a beautiful woman stepped out of the driver's seat. However, she staggered as she walked, so I called out to her. "Excuse me, are you okay?" And then, the woman collapsed right there. It was a hot day, so I thought she might have heat stroke and rushed over to help.
What did you say? I'm just really hungry.
What, is that it? At least I was relieved that she was not suffering from heat stroke. But how could someone rich enough to own such a luxury car fall down starving?
I wondered, but I figured she was hungry anyway, so I asked, do you like tomatoes?
I love them.
I'll be right back.
With that said, I went back to the field and picked one of tomatoes I was going to harvest. As soon as she got a tomato from me, she bit into it without a second thought. For me, it was somewhat endearing to see her munching away, so I fed her tomatoes one after another.
Thank you so much. It was so good.
She seemed very pleased, and hearing her praise made me really happy.
I'm Claire. May I ask your name? I'm Trevor. You make really good tomatoes. You look like you're only in your 20s. Have you been a tomato farmer all your life? No, I've been through a lot, so I retired to help my family farm. But it's surprisingly fun, and I carefully grow every single tomato for people like you who tell me how good it tastes. I love the tomatoes growing in this field as if they were my own children, and I feel like the father of a big family. It's weird, isn't it? I laughed and said, No, not at all. It's wonderful. Well, I need to get going. Thank you so much for the delicious tomatoes.
Claire then got back into her luxury car and drove off. Though I've always struggled with communication, talking to Claire felt surprisingly easy. She was a mysterious woman, but I would have liked to talk with her some more. I stayed for a while watching the road Claire drove off on. Just a few days later, I received an invitation to my high school reunion. During high school, I was so focused on my studies that I didn't really make friends. Most of all, I didn't want to go there, even more so when I thought about Jason, who always looked down on me. Jason is the son of the president of the Bennett Group, which manages several companies in the city. Despite his father being the remarkable one, Jason was always overbearing and looked down upon, and made fun of a gloomy student like me. I really disliked him intensely.
However, my mother saw the invitation and said, it might be nice to see everyone after so long. They might have turned out to be good people. Everyone's an adult now. Don't you want a girlfriend, Trevor? This could be a great opportunity. Go on, give it a try. I don't really want a girlfriend.
Still, there was some truth to what she said. That's right. Jason and everyone else are adults now. They wouldn't go out of their way to bring up the past and make fun of me. Encouraged by my mother, I decided to attend the reunion. Then came the day of the reunion. Following the directions, I arrived at a luxurious hotel. Once inside, it was quite lively, and it seemed there was a corporate presentation happening next door. Entering the venue, I saw all the familiar faces gathered, buzzing with activity. But having had no friends, I was completely alone. All I could do was drink and taste some of the unfamiliar dishes. Moreover, the high school I attended was quite prestigious, and most of the graduates are considered elites. Many of them are thriving in well-known companies, and some have even started successful businesses. This was probably why everyone was glancing at me and whispering something to each other. When I overheard that conversation, I felt a heartbreaking sense of sadness that tightened my heart.
I heard he got fired from his job. Yeah, heard that too. He was a dorky kid who only studied so he can socialize, for sure. A real loser.
I was already alone, and the cold stares that were pouring down on me even more relentlessly were knocking me down to the point where I could barely stand up. And my bad feeling proved to be right.
Hey Trevor, I heard you got fired from your job and went back to your mom's house. And now you're helping your mom with her tiny tomato farm, right? Not fun, is it, to live a miserable life, getting covered in mud every day? I don't think so. Even farmers are useful to someone. What? Can't hear you. Speak up.
Seeing Jason's appearance and manner of speech, which resembled Craig's during my time in sales, my heart raced and I broke out in a cold sweat, just like back then.
I already have a wife and kids. I'm the same age as you, but you're such an embarrassing person, aren't you? With the way you're dressed, you've never even had a girlfriend, have you? Well, you're poor and jobless. You'll never get a girlfriend.
The moment after he said that, Jason splashed the wine he was holding all over me. Hey Jason, you drink too much. Dylan, who was good friends with Jason in high school, stepped in to intervene. However, the others around us laughed mockingly, siding with Jason. Let's go home right away. I knew I shouldn't have come such a place. It was just as I was thinking this. Then, from behind me, a woman's voice said, I'm Trevor's girlfriend, what about it? Before I knew it, she had linked her arm with mine. Turning to see who it was, to my surprise, it was Claire.
Claire, what are you?
She put a finger to her lips as if to say leave it to me, making a shushing gesture. It seemed Claire had been observing the whole situation.
I had no idea that the heir to the Bennett group was such a bastard. Bummer.
Somehow, Claire knew that Jason was the heir. Puzzled, I looked at Jason and noticed his face had turned pale, and now he was the one sweating. And yes, Claire and Jason actually knew each other. The reason was that Claire's father's company was a major client of the Bennett group. Moreover, the presentation next door that day was hosted by the Bennett group. It was a good presentation, so I was planning to proceed along those lines. However, I'm going to pass this time. Let's go. With that, she held my hand, and we left the venue together. Later, Claire's company terminated its contract with the Bennett group, and the Bennett group's business has been slipping. Jason was disowned by his family and expelled. Now, no one even knows what he's up to. The reason Claire had visited the countryside that day was to inspect the planned construction site for the new hotel. Claire really liked the tomatoes from my family's farm and even arranged for them to be supplied to the new hotel through her father. My mother was thrilled, and this success brought prestige to our tomatoes and made our farm highly successful. After exchanging contact information at the reunion, Claire and I started going out regularly and eventually began dating. Claire, will you marry me? I proposed at the restaurant of the newly built hotel, and we officially became husband and wife. We are now blessed with 2 children and live happily. Talent is something that can only be honed if you are aware of it, in my opinion. Conversely, if you are aware of your weaknesses, you can address them. In my case, even though I'm not good at communication and am a bit clumsy, I have a talent for persevering. Analyzing yourself in this way may be helpful when you are unsure about your career path or career change. I also feel that in recent years, peer pressure has reduced the environment in which people can act and speak spontaneously. Bullying is the most obvious example. Even though they know it is wrong when someone like Jason, who seems to have a lot of money and power, bullies the weak, many of them become bystanders or perpetrators because they don't want Jason to hate them or to be noticed by Jason. And this mindset takes precedence over their own. Everyone prefers not to make enemies of powerful people. I can fully understand that sentiment. But if you can muster the courage to stand up for the victim, your character will significantly improve. If you've ever experienced bullying, you know what I mean. When faced with a multitude of enemies, how reassuring it is to have just one person, even if it is only one person, to offer a helping hand. Those who can offer such help will surely find their lives rewarded. With that belief, I hope you live your life with compassion, never forgetting to offer a helping hand to those in need with a simple "Are you okay?" I truly believe you can be that person.